I will give everybody, hang on, I'm trying to get back to my Zoom here. I'm going to give everybody a minute or so to go ahead and get logged into that VM. Do me a favor, just put up that, was it a thumbs up if you're in your VM and you're ready to continue, or even if you're just watching, either way. If any of you are having trouble, with VPNs or whatever, I'll make this code accessible to everyone after we're done. So that won't be the end of the world. And just to recap where we were from yesterday, what we did was we used Visual Studio and we used some inheritance to make it super duper easy to go and make a call into a search list, right? So that all we had to do was write a set of properties and 2 new methods, okay, in order to use these properties in sort of a strongly typed fashion, not writing a whole lot of code that would otherwise be repetitive. All right. So what we said yesterday is we said we were going to try to use Excel to build these properties. So what I'm going to do is a demo. You're not going to do this yet. You're going to do it later. I'm just going to show you how I do that. I'm going to go into BBCRM. And are you guys able to see my screen?
No, can't.
Not yet. Oh, there we go. And there it is. Okay. Share. It would help if I hit the share button. Okay, so now that I'm screen sharing, everybody should see my copy of BBCRM here. All I did is go over to this event search, right? And I picked the fields tab. Why the fields tab? Because the output fields tab isn't going to do us any good. We can't set those output fields, okay? Or we don't want to. That's part of our return value. So what I'm going to do here on the fields tab is I'm just going to go to more. I'm going to hit download to CSV, and I'm going to open up this export.csv file. Okay. And hopefully everyone can see that okay. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of a lot of these fields. And the reason is we definitely don't want to use the hidden fields, okay? Because those hidden fields are going to be set in another manner, generally speaking. I mean, you could use them, but in this case, we're not going to. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that row. And I'll do this. And the other thing I'm going to get rid of, in addition to the hidden fields, is I am going to also get rid of the this one simple data list field. And the reason I'm going to get rid of the simple data list field is because that would require us to write another object. Now I do have in my project, I did write a base class for simple data lists, but writing a simple data list is kind of a little outside of the scope of what we're doing today. All right, so I got rid of that, right? Collapse the lines. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of everything here. Okay, all of these columns. The only 2 I'm keeping are the data type and the field ID. Okay, those are the only 2 things that I want. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a little bit of a formula. Equals cat. Public space, comma, that column, comma, space, comma, that column, comma, quotation mark, open curly brace, get set, close curly brace. Okay, let's see.
Double quote.
Oh, thank you. Always miss that closing quote.
After the bracket.
Yep. course I do. And closing quote and the bracket. There we go. Right, so that should look pretty familiar to everyone, right? And I'm just going to do quick copy and paste. And look, this is a small data list. It probably would have only taken a couple of minutes to hand code these properties. What if you got 100 properties, right? And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make these syntactically correct for C#. You could always use, obviously if you're doing it in VB, it's a little bit different. So we've got bool, and then our strings. And the last thing I'm going to do, because we're going to make this a CSV file, right, is I'm going to just right in here, do a copy, and then a paste special values. All right, and now all I need to do, and this should be syntactically correct, is I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to go into Visual Studio, and all I would do is just paste this into my new class, right? Look good so far? And just for good measure, I'm going to do a quick build. So who can tell me, and why can't I see the chat right now? There we go, chat. Who can tell me either by coming off mute or going into the chat what you think the next step should be? You're sitting here writing this, what's the next thing I'm going to need to do? Just out of curiosity, see what we all think. Anyone see some code we need to add here? Well, I scroll down a little bit and give you all a hint. Field values set, that's correct. We need to add the new properties to the field values set. And this is all well and good, probably not too big a deal with only adding 5 properties. But what if I had 100 properties? What if there was a simple data list in here? Don't you think that might be a little bit more coding than you might want to write? So fortunately, I have a solution, and I just got to pull up my notes because I do have notes. It's actually a GitHub project. Okay, so what we're going to do, show of hands, who has worked with reflection before? Put up some hands or smiley faces or thumbs up or whatever. So just trying to get an idea of who's familiar with reflection. Okay, so what reflection, so there's a lot of stuff you can do with reflection. In fact, those of you that are familiar with the catalog browser know that that's really using reflection to go ahead and open up a DLL, right? And find out what packages are in an assembly that you wrote, a catalog project that you wrote. Well, one of the nice things you can do, with reflection is you can go ahead and list all of the properties of a class. So what we're going to do is, and we can do this one, we're going to do together. Let's go into our BBAPPFX folder, and we're going to go all the way up to the form filter based superclass. And I will tell you that I did this for demo purposes. In real life, I would most likely have another superclass above form filter base. Okay, that would handle stuff like this, because this is going to be pretty much in nearly every call, right? Where we're going to, nearly everything we're going to do, we're going to have to make a call. We're going to want to make a call to this. All right. So what we're going to do, though, we're going to let this live in our form filter base. And right after our execute load, let's add a new method, protected void populate field values. And it's not going to take any parameters. And we'll put in our curly braces. Now, another show of smiley faces or thumbs up. Who here has worked with link before? Couple of you. Well, link is kind of Microsoft, or well, really, it's more than just Microsoft. Link is kind of a query tool that we use to write queries in high order languages. Okay, so meaning when I say a high order language, I mean something you have to compile, as opposed to SQL, which is not compiled. So what we're going to do is we are going to use a link query in order to get the properties of whatever object we're in. Okay, and we are going to use type inference for it as well. Okay, so we're going to say var props equals this dot get type. One of the few places you really do need to use this. I'll explain why later. This dot get type dot get properties. Okay. And then what we're going to do is I'm just going to throw this into an array. Okay, so I'm just going to say, and it's an array of type property info. Property info prop list equals props dot to array property info. All right, everyone good? You want to give me some feedback? Let me know you're tracking. All right, and what I'm going to do, just for demo purposes, okay, in my execute search method, okay, which is where it's going to need to go. I always got to check this because I never remember where it actually goes. Actually, we're going to keep this in the superclass. Okay, so in our execute load method, okay, which is right here, the very first call we're going to make in our execute load method, okay, is going to be populate field values. All right, and I'm just doing this for a little bit of a demo to walk through it. This is nowhere near ready for prime time yet. We are not even close. Okay, we do have a little problem to solve though, and I'm going to show you what it is. This is not going to work. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and put a breakpoint in here, and I'm going to go back to my program, and I'm going to get rid of the constituent search piece. It's going to go ahead and hit F5, so it'll just run to cursor. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. All right, and now I'm going to step into our populate field values method. And I just want to go ahead and expose our array. All right, so I have our property list, and I realize this is going to be a little bit small. Let's see. Okay, but notice I have all of my property lists, all of my properties, right? I've got a name, I've got a location, including active, main event, room, lookup ID. What else do I have? I have a field value set. What else do I have? I have a form item. Okay. Do we want these? Are these properties that we're going to be able to use for our search list? No, we don't. I don't want anything to do with those. Now, would it be easy to hard code it? Yeah. But you know, depending on how we write this, there could be some other, these are all instance properties. The reason it didn't show up is because of the way I wrote the link query. Or really because of the way I wrote the get type. But there could be times when object ID shows up. We don't want that. All we want are fields that we're having users populate. So what am I going to do about that? Well, what I'm going to do about that is I'm going to decorate all of my properties in this class. Sorry, in this class right here. Right? I'm going to decorate them with an attribute of my own creation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new class in my BBAPPFX file here. Usually I would create a new file, but today I'm just going to go ahead and put it right up above BBAPPFX base. And I will confess that I made a little mistake that I'm going to have to fix. Anyone see what I did wrong here? All of these other classes, I made them child classes of the AppFX base class, which is why I should have noticed that yesterday. Which is why it barked it. Remember how I had to do this? This is why I had to do this. Okay, so I had a little paren error. I want to go ahead and fix that. Sorry, folks. I'm sure I'm not the only one that has ever happened to. There we go. All right, let's do a quick build, make sure I didn't break anything else. One failed. And I think I need to do this too. There we go. All right, cool. Sorry about that, folks. If you want, you'll be able to download this. It was a very simple fix. Can't believe I had that curly brace out of place. Okay, so what I'm going to do is in this BBAPPFX CS project, I'm going to all the way up here to the top. I'm just going to write a brand new class, real simple one. Public class form field property inherits attribute. And we're just going to make it an empty class. That's all there is to this class. All we want to do is use it to decorate our fields. Now all I have to do is in my constituent search class, under event search, right in front of public string. And normally I would do this in the formula in Excel. And we do have to put brackets around it. And see if I can get my alignment correct here. All right, form field property, and I'll just do a copy and paste. Okay, so I did my copy and paste. And now what we're going to do, I'll go ahead into, just keep an eye on the time. I'll go ahead into my AppFX base class, right? And do I still have my breakpoint? I do. I'm just going to go ahead and run this. Well, except I forgot to make one more change. So what I have to do, we'll see. I'll go in here, right? This properties is still going to have all those other fields in it, right? Apologies for the landscapes, folks. So this is still going to have these other properties in there, right? So what we have to do is this is where the link part comes in. We have to now go ahead and whittle this down with a query. So after my get properties, and this is why I use type inference, okay, I'm going to put in a dot where, which is an extension method, where of type property info. Okay, and I always forget. My link syntax is terrible, just so you know. I always have to refer to something when I write links because I'm used to seeing. So prop equals greater than prop dot get custom attribute. of type, form field property. And it's going to take a parameter because there's an overload. And that parameter is called inherit. So we use inherited properties, right? That's important. Inherit equals true, not equal to null. And so now if I run this again, if I go ahead and look at my collection one more time, we'll see we've gotten rid of these other two properties. And it's not really about the specific properties. You may have other properties in your code that you're working with that are not really part, that are not going to become part of the search list, right? So this is how we're going to include only those that are part of the search list. All right, what comes next? Well, now all we have to do is set the values. Okay, so I have my property list. And I'm going to start up a for each property info prop in property list. I love some of the new autocomplete features in Visual Studio 2022. And let's see if p dot property type equals type of string and p dot get value this equals null. Then field value set dot add, sorry, dot set value. P dot name, string dot empty. Okay, that's because we are not allowed to have null strings in BBCRM. So we do need to make a special case in case somebody did not set a string property. Okay, and then for our else, field value set dot set value, prop dot name, prop dot value, sorry, prop dot get value this. All right. So now that we've done that, we're going to be setting all of the values. So what do we not need? We don't need this anymore. Now I'll run it. F11, there's our property list. See what that name is. That name is name. And you can see we only have the one populated, so that's the only one that's going to be there. And then BBAPPFX, set our filter, and there is our reply object. And with our output, we have the same two rows we had yesterday and very little code to write. So who's got questions? This is supposed to be fairly interactive. Anyone have a question? Something else I can show you? Feel free to come off mute. I am looking at the chat, but feel free to come off mute. Okay. So what I will do is I will take a moment here and do one more class for you all, because I do have the time. Like I said, I have plenty of stuff to work with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a new class. Okay, this time instead of doing a search list base, I'm going to do a data list base. Okay, and just show you how they're similar but not identical. Okay, let's see. Get my notes. All right, now what I had done. So the big difference between a data list and a search list is that a data list takes context, right? So what I did was, because there are a lot of things like data forms that take context, what I did is I have this additional superclass, okay, called context form filter base. Oh, I do, and well, we did that already. So I have my context form filter base and I have my data list base. All right, so here's where the difference is going to come in. I forgot I pasted this into the code yesterday. Here's where things are going to be a little bit differently. Let's say I want to do a constituent address data list, right? Constituent address data list. I'll just go into here. So I have my event search and my constituent search. And what I'm going to do here, public class constituent address data list inherits data list base. And of course, I need my constructor for my data list base. Or for my constituent data list, right? And so the constructor, we really have two constructors here. Right? One is protected. Would help if I were typing in the right screen. Protected data list base, and this one is just going to take the. This one is just going to work with the data list ID, right? So protected data list base, no parameters, base, and then in the base constructor, I need to set a GUID. So I'll go right here into BBCRM. I'll go ahead into, I'll go grab a constituent search, use Robert Hernandez. Oh, I hate when this happens with the new machine. Contact. And go into design mode, go to data list. And here I grab my GUID, my address data list. You can do this with a custom data list too, by the way. Base, new GUID. Here we go. Missed that escape character. And in here, we're just going to make a call to a method called init request object. I think I may not have put that in correctly. I'll leave it this way for now. I might have to add something in here. Okay, and the other one, because not all. This is boring now.
Can you drop that GUID in the chat, please?
Sure can. There's a chat window. Public class. Public data list base. Oh, constituent address data, excuse me. And then we'll have our second constructor, public. I'll just make a copy of this, constituent address data list. Right, base new GUID, only this one is going to take a context ID. String context ID, and that's going to be a parameter for our second constructor. Context ID. All right, now let me go ahead and check on this because there was supposed to be another thing in my data list base. Oh, this is why. Private void and okay. And right, that's because this wasn't here. All right, so I built my two constructors, right? Edit, advanced, document, that way it fixes all that stuff. Now, what do I need? Don't really need anything in here, right? All I need is to go and add my properties. And so to add the properties, I'll just be right here. I'll look at filters, and it only has one, include former, right? And now I'll just say form field property. Oops, need my square brackets. Public will include former get set. Okay, so I got that. And by the way, notice I really could have gotten rid of this override void execute search, so I don't need that in the data list anymore, right? And the context record was already set. Okay, it was set here in the second constructor. So now all I need to do is I'm going to go back into my program, constituent search. I'm going to comment out my event search. Okay, and I'm going to say, well, here, string context ID equals string dot empty. And I'm just going to dummy this up a little bit. I'm going to say context ID equals CS dot I made a mistake here. Hold on a second. Search list, constituent search. Public string get ID, get GUID. We'll do it as a string. And that's because I made that property protected. If I wanted to go out a little further, I would have need to make it public. Public string get GUID, string result equals reply object.
Are you putting that in the correct class? You're putting in the event search class, aren't you?
Oh, thank you. Needs to go into the constituent class, the constituent search class. There we go. Thank you. Good spot. Equals I'll cheat by putting in this, even though it's bad form. This dot reply object dot reply object, not request object. This dot reply object dot output dot rows 0 dot values 0 to string. And result. And that's only because of the scope. So I'll just sit here and say context ID equals CS dot get GUID. And then I'm going to say constituent address data list ADL equals new constituent address data list context ID. And then I will say ADL dot execute list. And now let's run through it. I know all of your code compiles the first time every time, right? There we go. All right, so there's my search list, got my get GUID, there's my data list. Notice it's still calling that same code. And if I look at my address data list and get a look at the reply object, I have rows, and there are, as I expect, 3 rows for Robert Hernandez. That's all there is to it. So who's got a question for me? So does everybody see some usefulness here if you're writing some API codes and BBAPPFX API stuff? All right, so in the last, oh yeah, for sure. Once you write that code once, I mean, you know, look, I've done, you know, I've been kind of working on this for quite a while. Once you've done, you know, part of it is you don't need to get this fancy with it right from the jump. If all you're doing is writing lists, you don't need to go to the extent that I went. I agree, Kevin. You don't have to go to the lengths that I've gone. If you're just using data lists, for example, you're just using search lists, fine. So you start by writing the search list. Just keep in mind as you're working on this stuff, feel free to refactor stuff into a superclass. That's kind of how I came down this road. You know, kind of as you realize that you're doing everything the same way all the time, every time, you can then go in and write the, you know, you can then refactor stuff into the superclass. All right, sound good? All right, so in the 2 minutes that we have left, where I'm going to go from here is I am going to, yes, I'm going to share this code with you all. I'm going to send you after we're done here. I'm going to put this up onto a site that I'll grant you access to. You can also keep your code. You have access to the clipboard. You can copy that down. But I will put my code up onto a SharePoint link that I'll grant you all temporary access to. And then, you know, I have everyone's email address, and, you know, then you'll be able to download it and have a look at it. Sound good?
Sounds good. Thanks for your time, John.
All right, no worries, everyone. Everyone have a great afternoon. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll Friday Eve, so have a great weekend.
Thank you.